Hello everyone and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey. Thank you all for joining me again today. Today we're going to be talking about your journey is your message, and we're going to be talking with Silke Zankers. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
More or less, yeah.
Perfect. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I always give it an insight as to what the show's all about, so that you know more about what it's all about and what we're going to be speaking about today. So the whole show is all about uncovering entrepreneurs' stories and journeys to success, from where they first started their humble beginnings all the way through to where they are today, and along the way they share some of the challenges and obstacles they face, and the learnings that they've come across along their journey. And then we see what it is they do, why they do it, and why they give back to the world. So today it's going to be a real pleasure to find out about your journey, your story, and how you're giving back to the world in your own unique way. But before we jump into your story, I always ask, who would you describe yourself as today, and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So thanks for having me, Andy. Really happy to be here. How do I describe myself? Well, I think somebody once said, I'm the midwife for ideas for entrepreneurs. And I think that captures it pretty much. So I help entrepreneurs and leaders, thought leaders, people who really have something that they want to share, to discover and distill what it is that they stand for, and then help them to get it out in the world with impact. So that's why, one of my programs, it's called Your Journey is Your Message, because I believe there's a lot of wisdom in all of our journeys. But how do you make it your message, and how do you communicate it in the world? And then I do it in different ways, from trainings and coachings and, working with people in many different ways.
No, I love it. I love just within that sentence, your journey is your message. You can take so much from just that short sentence, can't you? Your journey, your story, your message, it encompasses so much. So let's look at your journey and story. Beginning of our hero's journey is always a place of pain and discomfort, where sometimes we're not happy with our life and we want to make a shift and a change. Tell me, was there a place in your life where you wanted to stand up and do something different, make a change?
I think there was quite a few, I have to say, probably from my early 20s onwards, where I've gotten into the work world with quite a bang, and was in the corporate world and doing really well, and fairly soon, early on, discovered, I'm not so sure this is for me. But, then kept on going like many people. And then I took a year out and traveled the world and discovered the world and got back into it. And kind of always, it happened to me a few times in my life that I wanted to break out of this routine of working for somebody else's vision and maybe not being 100% aligned with it, and still wanting to do a good job, and really then, working hard and not feeling so balanced in my life. And then went back right into it after I had broken out of it. But I think the biggest part was in 2008, when I was working for a startup company, really exciting product, exciting company. But the typical startup, journey where things go really well, they go up and then they go down. And so I was at a stage where I had been traveling so much, working really hard, 24/7, connected, being responsible for a lot of people, a lot of money, and then just felt my relationships go down the drain, my health go down the drain, and just didn't feel like I had a place, and I didn't know anymore, why am I actually doing this, for whom and for what, and that went on for quite a few months. And, to the outward world, looking like a very successful businesswoman, and then asking myself the question in a lonely hotel room, like, am I really that successful if I don't feel well and I'm not happy? And I didn't really act on it. So I had this feeling, and it's more than a hunch. It was not a hunch. It was a clear sign in my face. And I only acted on it when I ended up in the hospital one morning and woke up after back surgery. And I realized, oh, hang on. What just happened? So, responding to your question, that really was a time where I then fairly quickly asked myself, okay, so this is not how I want to live my life, but then what is it? And I went on my own journey of discovering that.
Fantastic. So I imagine that was quite overwhelming, going through that experience, because, sometimes it's an emotional journey and well, it is an emotional journey as well as a physical, but that was the physical really hitting you hard, as well as obviously, having that realization that you wanted to do something different.
Yes.
So that was your initial call to do something different, make that change.
Yeah.
What was it that you wanted to then pursue after that on your adventure?
Yeah, I think that journey, that thought process or that emotional process, like I said, started a few months earlier. So I had been thinking about, well, what could I do and how could I do it, or with whom? And I just knew I needed to come to a place in my life where I love what I do and I really want to make a difference in the world. And I also need to be more free in how I do that, because being healthy is important to me. My relationships are important, family, friends, partner, and health in general. So I then thought, okay, I need to find a way of working where I can actually serve all the other needs as well, and find that way. And I don't mean a balance where it's static, but to just find a dynamic balance so I can go with the flow, but I'm not so dictated by other people what that flow will look like. So those were, some initial thoughts, but also thoughts around, I've been given gifts, and I've always been interested in a lot of things in my life where I felt I couldn't really express them so well. And so it was kind of this surge of, what is it that I want to do? What's my purpose? How do I express my purpose in a more direct way? I think I've always done jobs where I always found parts of the work and what I did in the world interesting, but never in a way where I was like, yes, this is it, and I feel totally aligned. I nearly felt like there was one part of me, in that corporate world, and I loved that, and the other part was doing yoga, meditation, teaching Ayurveda, and I couldn't bring them together. And these were the initial thoughts where, in the conversations I also had with friends and family, was, okay, so, but how can I bring this together so it's not pulling me apart?
And I imagine that was obviously your attitude towards being quite very work driven, I'd imagine, obviously, like you said. So getting that balance and integrating all together. So what was your biggest challenge in terms of that integration, would you say?
Really, like, not standing in my own way. Yeah, it was not so much an outward challenge. It was more after having that initial courage or idea to say, okay, I can really do this, and I believe in myself, and I surround myself with people who support me 100%. And I think that was the initial challenge, to also not be so influenced by what do other people think about me, and can I really do this because people expect something else from me, and what will my friends say? And that was the biggest challenge, to be okay with it and to overcome that.
And I was going to ask you, who were the archetypes in your life, or the key characters in your life that were, inspiration, but not only inspiration, but your mentors and your guides that help you move through some of these challenges.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I do think my family to a big part, where I just realized no matter what I do or how I do it, they love me anyways. And just knowing that, and knowing that people are there for you, that was really helpful. So, but then also, I really had a few mentors in my life that, one mentor comes to mind, particularly from my early years when I was in my early 20s. And he was a mentor for professionally, and he still is 20 years later, is that person for me who I can call up, and he gives me advice, and I can ask him questions around work and career. But then certainly also my spiritual mentors, people that were there for me to not only listen, but also help me find that wisdom in my own, in my own journey, and help me see the bigger picture and dive deep into my strengths. And not only my strengths, but also realizing that I can actually, that we can co-create our journey, that it's not something that just happens to us. So there's been
and it's not just individual. It doesn't need to be individual.
no, exactly. So actually, it's hard to pick one or two because there has been quite a few mentors, and I think that is one of the themes that has gone through my life, that I've always surrounded myself with people in different areas of my life that can support me and help me.
It's fantastic, and sometimes we have the conscious mentors that gets us through the physical challenges, and it's great to see you've got the spiritual mentor that gets you through your emotional and spiritual challenges, because they're our journey encompasses everything really, and becoming a complete individual is a challenge, especially as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And and then I do think, like, if I could give you a list per area of my business and my life, who the people are that I go for advice. I have people that advise me on financial things, and people on my health, an osteopath and a physiotherapist, and and then a life coach. So really have people for every area. And I like you said, I think that is important, because not one person can guide you in all the areas of your life.
Yeah. And I guess it's finding those areas that you believe are key for yourself, or that you realize that you need the support in that area, or that guidance. Some areas you might feel you're not necessarily we're all complete in a certain area, but you feel like you're more grounded in a certain place. So you might need to focus on the other missing element, you could say.
Yeah.
So if we look at your journey as it's unfolding in terms of your road of trials and the challenges that you faced as you were growing your business, what were some of the challenges that you came across as you were becoming the entrepreneur you are today?
Well, there were many. And some bigger ones, some smaller ones. I think challenging is when there's people involved, and maybe a business partnership that you thought would work doesn't work out, or a project you start with somebody, and then now looking back, I'm like, well, maybe there was just too much pressure on some of these, and the expectations were different expectations, and the way we communicated about it wasn't so helpful or skillful. So those were a few challenges, I'd say. And then, like many people, like, you have goals and then you don't achieve the goals, whether these are financial goals or you have a great idea and you think the idea is so amazing. You start working on it and it doesn't work. Maybe the market is not ready. I've seen that quite a few times, either in my own business, but also in other people's businesses, that maybe you're just a little bit ahead of the curve. And if you then don't stick to it, you give up and somebody else comes and has the same idea, and then it works. But also for me, a constant challenge always is when you are passionate about what you do and you really enjoy it and you work with people and for people, to set healthy boundaries, to know when you also need to take time out for yourself, and what are the boundaries between yourself and other people. So those were some of the challenges, and raising money, knowing how to plan, and maybe also being in uncertain times sometimes where we can't control a lot of things outside. We can't really control anything outside of ourselves. So it's about how do you adapt to all these changes, and that can be challenging.
If I was to ask you then, in those situations and circumstances when there are the hard times, we have the temptations that appear. They will always appear, no matter who we are. There'll always be those temptations, bright and shiny objects, or punishment temptations that, like, oh, okay, I need to go back to work. Was there anything that kept you, in line with what you wanted to create and kept you on your path? And did you have any of these temptations?
I did have these temptations, and these temptations then are maybe, let me do something I'm not really aligned, but the money comes in, or let me continue working with people and we don't have the same vision. So those are temptations, because sometimes it seems it's the easier way, or it seems, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. Or a job that you get offered, right? And you're like, oh, that sounds kind of nice. Somebody else is taking care of everything and I can take off. And what kept me nevertheless always on that path is, I feel sometimes once you've tasted that freedom and that sense of what it feels like when you really impact somebody else's life, and these shining eyes and the courage somebody can muster, and then have a big impact themselves and feel empowered and transformed. And you had a tiny little part in that piece, and you see that person then go out and help a lot of other people. When I think about that, and I'm in touch a lot with all the people I've worked with, so I constantly, even now after many years, I'm still in touch with them, and I see that and I follow their journeys. That keeps me going. Yeah.
I was going to ask why you do what you do at the end of the show, but I think you filled it out there well.
Yeah. And then the second thing that keeps me going is that I have a really big community of entrepreneurs around me. People that can, that feel with me and that go through similar things. And I pick them up, they pick me up. And that is kind of this helping each other to remember, why are you in it in the first place? It's something bigger than yourself. And so if it is something bigger than ourselves, there's always something that keeps us going. Yeah.
Definitely. So as we move your road of trials and some of the challenges, if I was to ask you then in that collaboration area, when you said you found some difficulties with collaborations because they sometimes fall through, and that's a natural thing again, isn't it? What did you find was good learning from those collaborations that made collaborations work well for you in business? Just an interesting one.
So those moments when you feel like you have a vision that is aligned, and you speak about it and you establish that from the beginning, but you also talk about that life changes and how you're going to deal with these moments when you maybe don't agree, and what are some guidelines around that. So not to hide in that high, you have that in relationships as much as you have it in business partnerships. You have this high of the first few moments, and when you have these great ideas and you don't want to look at down the line, so what's the everyday life going to look like? But I think being prepared for that is really helpful, to not only dream and speak about the positive things, but also to speak about the time. So how we're going to deal when things get a little bit, tough. So that worked really well for me. And I think that is something where I've grown a lot, is to just be really anchored in myself, no matter who I work with, to know who I am and what I stand for, and not needing a business partnership or a project with somebody else in order to be able to do something, or to dare to do something, or to feel like, okay, now I can do it. But just know, okay, this is what I stand for. And when I work with somebody else together, 1 and 1 is 3, and we can do even more. But not that feeling of neediness. I need them, otherwise I couldn't do it. Definitely. Yeah.
No, I love it, and it's interesting you say about the times at which you have those disagreements, because we've all got the different mindsets, and we're always going to have those slight different things that we think we'd love to do it that way, and then they'd love to do it that way. We've got different visions, slightly different visions, but no, it's good. If I was to ask you then, was there a time when it shifted for you? Everything came together and it was like clicking, just clicked, and your business started to take off, grow wings.
Yeah. There was, and it was interesting. So, I had quite a few months where I was a little out of order in hospitals and rehab centers. And so I could do a lot of thinking. I studied a lot, and then I had a few months where I focused very much on my health. So that kind of all was in place. And then I started my business, and it went well, and it kind of went up and then really went down, how that often is when you start something. So the first, you get customers in, and it's easy because your friends, they tell their friends and they tell their friends. So you have the first group of customers, and then it dies off. And I just didn't prepare really well enough for that. And that took a moment. But then the moment I got over that hurdle, it somehow felt I had tapped into a few communities, like the TED community. So I was very engaged with TEDx and went to TED, the conference. I was very engaged with my yoga school and my, you know, my spiritual community. And when I felt like I was part of bigger things where it didn't matter so much only about me and my projects, that was the moment when a lot of things just fell in place. It took a lot of pressure off of me, you know, and now today I feel I can really make a contribution. And when things don't go so well sometimes, okay, it's part of the cycle in the world, and I don't take it personally, not that much anymore, you know. Not saying it's perfect, but it was certainly, there was a moment where I felt, okay, I'm owning this. This is who I am, and I am going to do the best I can. And that felt really empowering.
Definitely. So it was that sense of community,
yes,
that helps you create that shift.
A lot.
No, excellent. No, I love it. I love it. I think the community feel, even with entrepreneurship or whatever we do, really makes that bigger difference, because we see the bigger picture of how much more of a difference we're making in the world, or even with those local communities at which we're in. So asking you about who you are today based on your journey, what would you say who you are today?
Yeah, I'm someone who loves life. I really love life, and I enjoy being with people. And I think what this journey helped me see is, no matter what you do, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're at home with your children, or you're an entrepreneur and you have your own ideas, it's about showing up every single day and really having like a belief that you're there and it matters that you're there and you have a message that matters. And I do believe that about myself. You know, I believe I have something to give to certain people, somebody who really needs to hear this from me and who I can support. And I think that is something that describes me fairly well. But I'm also very well aware of that I'm the one who needs to take care of myself. Nobody else can do that as good as I can. So knowing that and just being okay with all the things that I'm maybe not so good at, it doesn't bother me that much anymore. You know, I'm still ambitious, I still strive, but I feel it just feels more balanced to me. Yeah.
In terms of the shift within yourself as an individual, I was speaking to a good friend today, and she was asking, what will help me bring back that fire? You know, because she felt like she's lost a bit of that real fire and passion. And I said to her, I think it's a shift in your energy. The shift in the way you work is different now. If I was to ask yourself, what was that shift within you from the start of your journey, to the end of your journey? Did you see that big shift in a conscious level, or even on a physical sense? You know?
I can feel it in a physical sense as well. I think it does have to do a lot with feeling connected and energy, and being able to master your energy. You know, like high performers, people that, and however you want to describe this term, but people who can sustain high levels of performance, they just know how to shift their state quickly, and it's not like you're not so much dependent on the circumstances. So when you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't feel well. Okay, that happens to all of us. But what do you do about it? How do you go about it? And that is something that has shifted for me. And when you spoke about your friend, when I have these moments when I don't feel that passion and I don't feel that fire burning, what really brings it out for me is two things. One is to be in nature. The moment I'm in nature and I feel connected to the earth, put my feet on the earth, I hear the birds and, you know, look up into the sky, that really helps me. And then the second thing is I then always go out and help somebody else fulfill their dreams. Because the moment we do that and you take the limelight, the spotlight off yourself and your own, you know, worries and whatnot, I just feel it's the best way to just lighten that fire up again in ourselves.
Definitely. I completely agree. I was out recording a video in nature today, and I said a very similar thing to my friend, whereby your passion, your fire will come from the clients at which you work with. Once you connect with them, your fire will just light again. It just lights, doesn't it? It's incredible how it does that.
Yeah.
So I was to ask you, your journey is your message. Tell me a bit more about that and what you're doing there.
Yeah. You know, it's very aligned with what you do. I help people to discover what their message is and know that a big secret of that lies in their journey, but also to be able to embody that. It's one thing to know, okay, I have a message I want to share with the world, a particular view on the world, a big idea. Another thing is to embody it and authentically be able to bring that across and have a big impact with people. And so we look at what has led you up to this moment, but also who do you want to be in the future, and how can you co-create that journey that you want to have in the future. And on a very practical way, you know, it can be, I'm working with a group of people. I'm doing a group coaching program where I have people that are starting their businesses or shifting their careers. I have others that are quite successful, and they're invited to give a big talk, you know, and they're at this stage and say, okay, to reach more people, I need to be much clearer, have more clarity and more energy behind my message. And that is what we look at.
Fantastic. No, I love it. It's much aligned with what I do, but it'd be great to connect with you on that and find out more about that. So what would you say the biggest learnings that others get from the course that when they experience it?
One big takeaway always is that how the group inspires each other, so that you can learn so much from somebody else's journey. And then a second one, that realization of, well, my journey actually does matter, because I can package it in a way so that what I've experienced in my life, the highlights and the lowlights, can make a difference to somebody else. And I think really everybody has something like that in them. So it's a matter of, you know, finding it, owning it, and having the courage to share it with others.
Okay, excellent. And if I was to ask you why you do what you do today again, based on the journey you've gone through, what would you say?
Why I do what I do?
Yeah, based on the journey. Based
on my journey. Because I've seen the power of how other people, mentors, coaches, friends, have enriched my life and have helped me step into my power. And just love what I do. So I want to give that back to other people. And then seeing that light in somebody's eyes when they step up and the impact they can have, I find that's life-changing, and that's why I do what I do.
Fantastic. And where can we find out more about yourself and your work?
Under, yourjourneyisyourmessage.com. Very simple, exactly that line. Yourjourneyisyourmessage.com. You can read more about myself and that program.
Fantastic.
So, and obviously connect with me on Blab and Facebook and Twitter. Quite active there.
What I'll do is I'll post all social links within the description on the website, and I'll post your obviously website itself on there as well. And so for those of you who are watching the recording, I know many of you will be listening to this on iTunes or on SoundCloud. So all of the links will be on the platform at which you're listening to it or watching it on, so you can find out more about them there. So is there anything else that you want to share at the end? Maybe an inspiring message that you want to pass on to the listeners today?
I think believe in yourself, and then just go out and do it, and surround yourself with people that lift you up. If that can be some small action you take, but do something. If you feel inspired right now, go and do something, a first step towards sharing your own message. That is something I think small steps of action can make a big impact in the world.
Excellent. Well, I do want to say thank you very much for joining me on the show, sharing your journey, sharing your story, and being the person you are in this world, because it is making a big difference, and you're passing your message on so many people. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and well, same back to you, Andy. Thank you.
What I'll do is I will say, for those of you who want to find out a bit more about the show, you can find out more about the show on my website, www.theentrepreneursjourney.tv. We are live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and also on YouTube. What I'll do is just relax the show a bit more now, and we'll ask a few more questions in a different way. Because we've still got a bit of time here. And so in terms of your journey and your message and storytelling, how would you say storytelling plays a big part in the lives of entrepreneurs and business people?
Plays a big part, and I think even more. And luckily, a lot of more people are discovering that. Because I think through the power of story, this is how people connect. And at the end of the day, we don't do business with businesses, we do business with people. And through storytelling, that's how you can connect to your customers. And it's a very simple, non-salesy way to really share what your business is about, what you are about, how you can help people. And that's why, I think it's very powerful.
Excellent. And what different ways can entrepreneurs use stories to share their message?
Yeah. Well, in a lot of different ways. When you look at even, how you speak about yourself on your website, on your About Me page, that really dreaded page of so many people, if you do that in a storytelling way and not in a CV bullet point list, that's a really good way. But also just really when engaging with your customers. So whether it's a sales presentation that somebody does, or you have a conversation with a customer and you tell them the story of someone else. So you don't have to tell them, this is what I do for you, or this is what the product I'm showing you will do for you, but you tell the story of how your product has helped somebody else. Then the story does the telling for you. It's more about showing people and not telling them so much what to do, but really just showing it to them and helping them to take the decision themselves. So those are a few ways. And, obviously when you look at fundraising, whether it's from an investor or bank or friends, those are really good areas to apply storytelling for entrepreneurs. And
I love working with coaches and sustainable brands, because you really see the message behind who they are as individuals, and what their big impact to the world is. And obviously through charities and fundraising, you really get that community feel as well, like you said, with the community feel with your big shift. So I imagine that's a big thing for the message you pass on to others as you help them pass on their message to their wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Just trying to think. There's so many things we can talk about in terms of story, in terms of the hero's journey, and the way that you work. I'm very intrigued about what you do, and I think we've got very much alignment with many things. Tell me a bit more about your TED work as well, then.
Well, I was a curator and co-host for TEDx in Lausanne in Switzerland. So I did that for a few years, and that was I loved that time. It was very intense, but whoever has tapped into that community knows how much passion there is and inspiration. And so worked with a group of 30 volunteers, and we put together a big conference every year. And in that time, curating the program and working with the speakers showed me there's so many people out there that have great stories to tell. And for me, it was a very intensive time also of learning on how to work with a lot of different people, and also seeing that some of the most accomplished people in their field, actually, when it comes to standing on a stage and then speaking about what they do in a more personal way, it can become quite intimidating.
Yeah.
And because it's so easy to hide behind, I'm a scientist and this is what I found. But now the moment you're on a non-scientific stage and you speak about why you as a person have made that discovery, how it has impacted you and how you want this to impact the world, it's a completely different ballgame. And from that, I've learned a lot about how much it takes also on a personal level for us to really embody what we stand for. So it was great work. I love doing that work, and I still go to a lot of conferences. And I still help people prepare for their TEDx talks and for other big conferences. And that is
it's fantastic.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
In correlation to delivering your message through public speaking or on a TED stage, to sharing your message on your website or within the business that you do, what would you say the main differences are, or are there any differences really?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I've not really thought about. I think the groundwork is the same. So you need to dive into who is my audience, who am I speaking to, what is it that I really stand for, and what drives me, and how can I weave everything together. I think in the application then, of course, it will differ. When the format is different, there's a specific format to, let's say, a TED Talk or a TEDx talk in terms of timing and in terms of what you're allowed to do and not to do. But it's a really good base to have for everybody, because your mini TED Talk can happen when you announce your program or you speak in front of a group of people. So the preparation is the same at the base, and then obviously when it goes into the application, there are some differences. But what I've also learned is that public speaking, and being able to share your message like this, it's a skill. It's not something that some people are born with and others are not. That's it. Yeah. It's like being an entrepreneur. If you really want it, you can learn it. And when you look at some of the biggest and the greatest communicators of our time, and you look at how much time they've invested into getting where they're at, if we would invest that time, we would make it very far as well. So I think it's that question of, on your bucket list, how high is it and how much are you willing to invest energy into it?
I completely agree. And I remember I read a story about Our Leaders Made or Born, and I thought, well, that's a good one. Obviously, the whole 900 hours series, we got to put the 900 hours in order to become a master of our craft, I think it's 900 hours, or is it 10,000 hours?
10,000. It's 10,000. At least it's what Malcolm Gladwell says, yeah.
10,000. I don't know why I got that so wrong.
That would be the shortcut, the 900.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But no, that's fantastic. Okay, well, again, thank you again for coming on the show, sharing your story, sharing your message. And I find with the show itself, like just you saying that jumping on stage and sharing your personal story is very vulnerable and can be scary. I often find when people come on the show at times that it's initially quite daunting, because sharing your personal story and message is a vulnerable thing. It's sharing your vulnerability. So again, it's been a real pleasure for you to share that and be with that on the show. So is there any last message that you want to share to anybody listening?
You with your last messages, they really put me on the spot. Well, yeah, I'd love to stay in touch with people, and I wish you a lot of really interesting stories to follow up, and a lot of people who get the opportunity to share their story, because I really find it interesting to listen to other people, and I am very interested in others, and I think it's not so much about judging whether we like it or not, but honoring when people do that and do share their story. So if we can bring that this attitude to other people, it'll come back to us as well. So thanks for creating that platform, and also the sticking with it. There's a lot to say for continuity and consistency. So I really enjoy that you do that, Andy.
Well, thank you very much. And Your website again. Do you want to share your website again one last time?
Yes, yourjourneyisyourmessage.com.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you all for listening again today. Thank you for being here as well as a guest, and we will see you all again next week. And I will say bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
The Entrepreneur's Journey. Create your empowering business story. Interviewing successful entrepreneurs from around the world to share their inspiring journey to success. Tune in live every week for your weekly dose of inspiration. Visit www.theentrepreneur'sjourney.tv for previous episodes.